What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LTQ Wrestling Podcast. We got QJ back on the episode. QJ, how we feeling? I know it's been a minute. Welcome back.
I'm good. It's pretty good.
Good to hear. And we have a special guest today. First time on the podcast. We got Money, known him for a long time. Money, how we feeling? And welcome to the podcast.
Yep, thanks. It's been quite a while. I've been doing pretty well. Glad to be here.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So let's get into a lot of wrestling topics as always. We had Bash in Berlin. We had AEW All In. I know All Out's currently happening right now.
Yes.
If I didn't get those two mixed up, yes. So speaking of AEW, Bryan Danielson. Some of y'all know him as Daniel Bryan, one of the best wrestlers I've seen in my life. He made some comments during a promo with Swerve. He said, "I'm the best wrestler in the world, and I have been the best wrestler of the last 20 years." Now, that's a big statement from Bryan Danielson. So, Tears, I know you had a lot to say about it. I'm going to let you start us off. Do you agree with Bryan saying he's the best wrestler of the last 20
No,
years?
no, no, not even a chance. I'm sorry. Brian is one of the best current wrestlers, but in the last 20 years, where we've had people like Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, like that type of star level, I'm sorry. But even I, as I say, I'm on the boat that where even in early ROH days, Nigel McGuinness was better than Brian. Uh, I can also see like an argument for people saying Rollins is better than Bryan. I don't know if I would say that personally, but no, I'm sorry. Like Bryan could be considered one of the top 10 best of the current decade, but that's as far as I'm willing to go.
Okay, Tears disagrees. So, Money, what about you? Do you consider Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan to be one of the best, or if not the best wrestler of the last 20 years?
By a long shot, hell no. I'm sorry, but I could name like just five off the top of my head, because especially 20 years down the road. No, you got people like Randy Orton, Triple H, John Cena. All those other guys that have done a lot more than he has in the last 20 years. I mean, Randy Orton, he was the youngest world champion of all time. Triple H, 14 time, or yeah, 14 time before he retired. Hell, even Undertaker's a lot better than him. So, yeah, maybe today's generation, like Tears was saying, but not in the last 20 years. That's far fetched.
Okay, we got two disagreements so far. So, QJ, how we feeling about Bryan saying that?
Uh, yeah, disagree. Like I said, I've been impressed with Brian, but remember the last 20 years, like Monday said, we had all the greats, Undertaker, Rock, all of them. I'm very impressed with Brian. I am liking his reign, and if this is gonna be his last one, it's gonna be his last one. But like I said, for this generation, yeah, but last 20 years, no.
I mean, even I would say like in the East, like we have people like Okada and Tanahashi and Naito, like they would definitely be categorized as better than Bryan to some people. I would even say Tanahashi personally. I've always been more of a Tanahashi fan than Okada. But people, and even Kenny Omega, like I'm hoping that we somehow get a match between the two because I think that would definitely be like one of those situations to where like it could be booked as best versus best.
Yeah, so for me, when I was really thinking long hard about it, I was going off, in ring only. And I'm thinking, okay, 2004 to 2024. And I didn't really count New Japan, so Tears throwing that in there kind of made me rethink about the time I was saying, okay, who is better than Bryan in ring? Because I know he was referring strictly to in ring. I don't know if he was referring to just his whole career. I compared three guys to him that came off the top of my head. I compared Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, and Shawn Michaels from 2004 to now. I wasn't really counting Omega in them because I feel like they haven't wrestled as long as those guys have. So I looked at it a different way. But I would definitely put him in top five. I wouldn't put him as number one. I do feel like Kurt Angle is above him. AJ Styles, you could definitely argue between those two. Shawn Michaels, I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time. So, I mean, I don't know if you could really consider many wrestlers at all better than Shawn Michaels. So I get what Brian's saying. He's one of the best wrestlers of this generation, no doubt. I mean, you looked at his work in WWE and Ring of Honor, and now what he's doing in AEW. I mean, there ain't many better than him in the ring, but best the last 20 years, I would say no to. So we got four disagreements on that. And we'll go ahead and move on to our next topic. So,
I was gonna
Undertaker.
say like
Undertakers.
I was gonna say there's the argument to where like just personal taste, because I know people who don't like the technical style, like they prefer more hard hitting, like Bryan tries to do. But you have people who do hard hitting better than him, like Samoa Joe. Just want to throw his name out there.
Oh yeah, Joe deserves a lot of credit too, especially for his career. So speaking of careers, Undertaker, one of the greatest. Money mentioned him. He wants to have one final match, and him and Styles in that cinema match during the COVID period was very good. I thought it was very good. Obviously, it wasn't a wrestling match. I know Undertaker has talked a lot. Like he wasn't really happy with his match with Goldberg, and him and Kane against Shawn and Triple H was a disaster. And he just didn't really like ending out on that note. And I know he wants to have one final wrestling match. So QJ, I'll start with you. Is there any opponents in mind that you think Undertaker should face if he were to have one final match at WrestleMania?
I say let him face The Rock, because remember that stare down at WrestleMania. When he came in and just choke slammed him. So I should say he should face The Rock. And I can get where Undertaker's coming from, because if I was in his position, if I'm really gonna go out, you know what I mean, I want to make sure it's one of my best performances, you know what I mean? So I can get where he's coming from. Yeah, but I say The Rock though.
Yeah, I like that answer. That would make actual sense. I mean, he did attack The Rock and chokeslam, so I mean, I wouldn't hate that idea. And yeah, like you said, he pretty much wants to go out on his own terms, and a lot of people would consider him and Styles going out in a good high note, but Undertaker's probably looking at that like, okay, that wasn't a wrestling match, so let me have a wrestling match. So, Tears, who do you think Undertaker should face if he were to have one final match?
I generally can't think of anybody personally. Like, I don't think he should. Like, if he wants to, that's great for him. But I'd be in the camp of people who says like that might be a bad idea. Like Cole Harley, and I also can't even think of anybody for him to face at Mania, because like DJ said, The Rock. I'm just like, yeah, but I'm also thinking like he's going to be fighting Cody Rhodes at the coming Mania, and I don't know if it would be any better to wait the whole next year. But if I had to, yeah, honestly, I can't think of anybody. Nobody comes to mind to fight The Undertaker now.
Yeah, that's surprising. Tears don't have an opponent. Yeah, I mean, you have to really think long and hard. Money, who do you think should be Undertaker's last opponent if you had to choose anybody?
So honestly, and I'm surprised neither one of you two, especially Tears, didn't say this. I have to say Uncle Howdy. And the reason behind that is originally, from what I've heard from the grapevine, he was supposed to pass the torch to Bray Wyatt, but then the unfortunate tragedy and passing of Bray Wyatt, he wasn't able to do that. And now with Uncle Howdy carrying on his legacy, I think him facing Uncle Howdy at WrestleMania would be a nice passing of the torch and give him that, new horror guy of the industry. I think that would be a great last match for Undertaker.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually like that answer. Would make a lot of sense. I mean, it'd be like, a tribute to Bray and him passing the torch. So I do like that answer for Money. For me, Uncle Howdy makes some sense. I could see The Rock maybe down the line. I mean, besides those two, I don't really know. I mean, it depends when Undertaker wants to do it. I mean, he's close to 60 now. I mean, I know there's guys who wrestle in their 60s. Sting wrestled and Ric Flair and all them, but time's ticking on his body. I don't know how healthy his body is. He's had hip replacements and he's had concussions and he's had a ton of injuries. And I mean, if he's healthy enough to do one more match, yeah, I'd go Uncle Howdy like Money did. I mean, I think that's a good choice. It'd be a good. I feel like
one. I don't know how I feel about the Uncle Howdy one. I don't feel comfortable with that one, because typically for WWE, two spooky gimmicks don't work together in matches. I feel like that match would just wind up being a little too gimmicky, and Undertaker probably would still not see that as an actual wrestling match.
I could get where you're coming from with that for sure. I mean, I know he faced Gable on Raw, and I mean, I didn't really see the full match, but I know it was
expected.
Yeah, it wasn't really like anything like crazy or nothing. So, yeah, I mean, Undertaker just gonna have to choose who he wants. I mean, I can't really think of many good options besides maybe those two either. I mean, it depends
Randy
if he
Orton?
wants to face an old rivalry or if he wants to do a passing of the torch type moment. It really just depends what he wants to do. The ball's in his court. He's a Hall of Fame guy. I mean, it's whatever he wants to do. So, I heard Tears. I heard you say something. You have any final comments?
Randy Orton?
That
I'm
wouldn't be a
thinking as
worst.
just like I'm thinking as a fan of like Undertaker in the modern day, and I'm thinking of like people like Randy Orton, Edge, maybe Batista does a match, because didn't we hear not too long ago that Batista probably wants to do another match? Just not too sure about it.
Yeah, he would love to, but he doesn't want to mess up what he did with Triple H. Now that was like a perfect ending of his career, so he's most likely not. But he said he does get the itch to do it for sure.
I'm just thinking of like at that time period of opponents.
Yeah, there's definitely options. You just have to see what it comes down to Undertaker. So the next comments by Hogan. I'm sure a lot of people have heard what he said on Logan Paul's podcast. He had a lot to say. Some of it was controversial. And Tears, I'll let you explain this because you explain it well than I do. So you can kind of go ahead and host this topic about what Hogan said about Chris Benoit.
All right, so basically to sum it up, and I didn't hear the entire podcast, but Hulk Hogan was talking about how Logan Paul can be a face in WWE, like get the crowd to cheer for him. And in terms, he said like Logan Paul could just come out and save Roman Reigns from a jump, and that's how you can turn Logan Paul face, because the WWE crowd can forgive anybody and then wind up cheering for them. Because if they could forgive Chris Benoit, then they surely can forgive Logan Paul. And the main thing that people are taking away from that is not only is that a huge leap between getting the fans to cheer for Logan Paul and then just saying like, oh, well, they forgive Chris Benoit. No, nobody has forgiven Benoit like for anything. So it's just one of those things to where like, why would you? I don't think people have an issue with like how Logan Paul, like saying how you can get Logan Paul cheered. The issue is using Chris Benoit as an example of saying like, oh, the fans, they forgave him.
Yes, so I'll let Money give his opinion on this. What do you think about what Tears said, and do you agree with what Hogan said about Chris Benoit?
So now that I'm kind of being filled in with what Tears had just told me, now some of the fans still look at Chris Benoit as a wrestler. He was a good wrestler. Everybody liked him. It was a shock at how the tragedy happened. However, when it comes to mentioning him in that way, I don't know. Because some fans have forgiven Chris Benoit, I will say. But, I mean, obviously, no one knows the true story, and no one ever will. You only know what you're told by the news, WWE themselves, and there's all kinds of speculations, but at the end of the day, you only know what you're being told. 3 people died in that house that day. 2 of them didn't have a choice. So, depends on really how you look at it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about it. I know Kevin Sullivan recently, passed away, and there was a lot of fans who thought he had to do with it. There's a lot of conspiracy theories with it. For me, I disagree wholeheartedly. It's just a bad comparison. Like mentioning Chris Benoit with anything is automatically going to get fans to just disagree or not be on the same page. Yes, like Money said, there are people who defend Benoit and they say, oh, it wasn't really him. He had the brain of a 70 or 80-year-old. He had concussions. He was on steroids, all that stuff. But he did it. I mean, whether he knew what he was doing or not, his brain was fried or whatever, he did it. And just using him in any comparison to anything, to me, is just never a good light. So Hogan's not afraid of controversy. He's always saying some stupid shit that's just always going to get headlines. He's a compulsive liar. He's always lying about what happened. I know he said Elvis was a Hogan fan or whatever. And I don't even think Elvis was even around when Hogan was arrested. So he just lies. But QJ, what do you think about what Hulk had to say about Logan Paul and Chris Benoit?
Yeah, don't forgive him, but Hogan, he'll probably just say anything, because a lot of these people, they say anything just to get clicks. That's how the media works. You say something, get
Yeah,
people
okay.
talking, and you don't really know how. Like you said, there's a lot of conspiracy. So the story, we don't even really know what the true story is. Like Money said, we just going off what they tell us, and that's kind of what everything. So got to really have different sides. I guess really hear out different sides, make your own judgment yourself.
Yeah, and like a lot of fans don't realize, like especially during that time, how much punishment guys were putting their bodies through. And I'm not making any excuse for what Benoit did at all. Never would. But like they were taking chair shots to the head. He was doing diving headbutts. I mean, his head was just screwed from wrestling. I mean, wrestling caused that to happen. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. Guys were doing steroids like crazy back at that time period. Steroids mess you up. There was a lot of drug addicts in the Tears, you good? Oh yeah, it's your phone. Yeah. That was Tears' phone. Everybody vibrating. So if anybody
Yeah,
realized,
about something for later.
yeah, we're good. We're good. So a lot of drug issues in the wrestling business. A lot of concussion issues. A lot of injuries. Like I know some fans consider it fake, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of mental toll it takes. There's a lot of injuries, and a lot of wrestlers have died at young ages. Not from the Benoit type of situation, but like just drugs and heart attacks and drug overdoses. So it's a very grinding business. And I hope a lot of fans realize that. But Tears, any thoughts from you to finish off this since you started?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you think that Hogan is just saying this stuff just to be controversial? Because I've been noticing lately, like, Hogan's just doing stuff that is seen as controversial to a lot of people. So I'm just like wondering, is this all just on purpose? Like, is he literally just being that dude to do stuff just to keep his name around?
Definitely, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I keep hearing tons of stuff. I mean, I'm hearing he's getting into Scientology now, which I'm not going to get into Scientology. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. We all know the Danny Masterson situation and all that. I'm not going to get into all that. But apparently he's involved in that. Now he's in a different religion. And now he's, Donald Trump's stuff, doing the Hulk Hogan slogan. I mean, he just wants to be in the headlines. And I mean, there's always I don't know if it's a saying, but it's like, just because you're in the headlines doesn't. I think Dutch Mantel was talking about it. He was like, just because you make headlines doesn't mean it's a good thing. And for Hulk Hogan, that's usually the case. Him and Ric Flair are usually in the headlines for the wrong reasons. So yeah, I mean, I think it's most of the time just for attention and trying to stay relevant because he's probably not going to wrestle again, and WWE barely uses him. So yeah, I agree. So we'll go ahead and get on to our final topic for this episode. So it's been talked about Triple H. He views social media during shows live. He'll be doing a pay-per-view or a premium live event, as they're called now, or Raw or SmackDown or NXT or whatever. Well, he don't do NXT. Sean does NXT, but he views social media to see live fan reactions, what the fans are saying about the match or the segment or the promo or what went on to see if it's a hit or if it's a flop. So, Money, I'll start with you. Do you see this as a good thing that Triple H is doing this, or could you see it as a bad thing?
Honestly, it can be both good and bad because now that Triple H is kind of in charge of the business, he can see like not only the criticism but the stuff that they like and don't like. So, and he can actually plan surprises instead of making WWE predictable like it has been for the last 10 years. So, I like I said, it can be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So, QJ, what do you think about it?
I think it's a good thing. It's good to always see a lot of like feedback. It was, did I do good here? Then I'm not saying you have to go based off that, but um, got to do a lot of swerves. I prefer that. You know what I mean? Got to throw people off like, oh, I didn't think he was gonna win here. Oh, wow, he got a win on the champion in the regular show. Wow, you know what I mean? Good to throw people off. You know what I mean? Because that was the problem back then. Like I'll use John Cena's example, my favorite. Like yeah, a lot of people tuned into him every time he had his matches and stuff like that. But people got tired because we already know he always was gonna win all these matches all the time. So it's like people kind of just got sick of it and it's like, can he lose sometimes? Like it's like he never lost, really like that. So yeah, so I feel like it's a good thing.
Yeah, that was a problem with Vince, and I can't think of who said it, but somebody said like Vince cared the show to one person, which he pretty much did. Now Triple H has got more people involved, which is always a good
I
thing.
think
So
that was
Tiz, what do you think about it? Yeah. So Tiz, what do you think about Triple H viewing social media during the shows?
Well, I agree. It's a good thing. I'm going to play devil's advocate on saying the reason why it might not be a good thing. And the reason I say that is because, like, the negative about it is, like, if Triple H takes too to heart what people are saying online, then he could just instantly wind up feeling like he needs to change the direction of a storyline, and that could just mess up an entire storyline instantly. Because some storylines are, like, fans could just say that, oh, it's not good, it's not working out, and then the ending turns out to make it all worth it. But if you pay too close attention to social media about it, then you could just decide to scrap an entire like plan just because to make people happy at that moment, and then all of a sudden you could just make a storyline that makes no sense.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, I would see fans because, like, I don't know if y'all watch SmackDown, but Giovanni Vinci made his debut, and they had
Oh,
him losing like 5 seconds, and fans were outraged. And I'm sure Triple H saw it. I don't know what the long-term story is, but there's already fans saying, "Oh, that's the worst booked wrestler of Triple H's era's, running WWE," and they're already burying him and all that. I'm not gonna say that yet. It's just one match. Is it great? He lost to Apollo Crews, a guy who has been relevant his whole time on the main roster. No, but we'll have to see where it goes. So for me, it could be good or bad. I mean, it depends because I'm an overthinker. So if I see one bad comment, I want to pay more attention to that than the 10 good comments. I'm gonna be like, okay, why does this person hate this? Why do they hate this segment? Why do they hate this match? What's the problem? Triple H probably doesn't think like that, but for me, it would get me kind of over anxious a little bit just viewing all that. But I mean, I can see it good and bad. Like y'all said, I've heard good and bad, but I mean, it does help you stay in tune with what fans want and what they're liking and not liking. But a lot of fans on social media don't know what they want half the time. They just complain to complain, or they just criticize because they just want to be negative. So you got to be careful with that as well. But I mean, I think Triple H is doing a hell of a job. Have I liked everything he's done? No, I didn't like Drew losing his cash in, stuff like that. But I mean, no booker's perfect. I mean, we could criticize Tony Khan for all his booking in AEW. I mean, it's no booker's perfect. So, but Triple H,
Especially nowadays.
yeah, now, yeah. So, I mean, I see it as a good thing. It's good to see fans, but you just got to be careful what fans you listen to. So, any final thoughts from anyone before we wrap up this episode?
There's one topic that we could talk about, but I don't know if how people feel comfortable about it.
Go ahead, shoot. What do you want to talk about?
I just recently got informed about the Charlotte cheating on Andrade scandal. I don't know if this is new news, but apparently that happened.
Well, I did not hear this. I think I did hear Britt Baker cheat on Adam Cole. I heard that rumor, which I heard they potentially broke up. I don't know what the truth is to that, but I did not hear this Andrade and Charlotte. Like, is that like this week it came out or something?
I'm not too sure. Like, I was just scrolling randomly through Wrestle News, and then all of a sudden I saw an article about like Charlotte. Like, there's an image of Charlotte like with another dude's arm around her while they're in bed. And I didn't look too much into it because I didn't want to just assume anything right then and there. I figured like more than likely you would probably know about this because you tend to find news and stuff. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't know if it's big news yet, but just in case it does become big news, at least we got a heads up on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's the thing about marriage. You got to be careful, especially when you're on the road like these wrestlers are. I mean, Andrade's been on the road. Charlotte hasn't because she's been hurt, so that could be, part of it as well. You just never know. I mean,
I could make
just
the joke
because you're
that she's
married,
a player.
I mean, you be loyal. So QJ or Money, any thoughts about what Tears brought up? Any final thoughts from y'all?
Yeah, like you said, when you're on the road, it's best to not really be with someone. It's like you on the road all the time, so you ain't really seeing them like that. And I guess depends if y'all work for the same company, but Other than that,
I mean, Black and Vegas seems to be working pretty well together.
Yeah, it all depends how the
it,
people are. Yeah, like I know Mercedes Moné recently said she wouldn't date anybody from a rival company, which this ain't a knock on her. I feel like she's a pain to deal with as a person, so I wouldn't want to date her anyways, even though I think she's very attractive. Always have.
I don't think I would say that publicly, though, too.
Yeah, like she's just I don't know. She always has a lot to say. Her AEW run's definitely been an interesting, yeah, very controversial, very. I think it's changed a lot of fans' tune on her, including myself. I still loved her in WWE as Sasha Banks. I just can't get into this Mercedes Moné Imperium knockoff theme music type shit. I just can't get behind it. Her and Britt Baker. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, it sounds like your thing is about the theme song. My thing is like she is the highest paid wrestler there. That's my thing.
No, that wasn't my only thing. That was just like something that just was first.
Like you're trying to get people.
Yeah. But like, I get the criticism. Her and Britt Baker, I do think they put it in a bad spot on the match card. I mean, you're putting it in between two of the most hyped matches on the card, Ospreay and MJF and Swerve and Bryan. That's just death for any match, putting it between those two. But I hear more fans saying it was Britt Baker's fault. She looked horrible in the ring. I didn't watch the match. I'll have to go check it out to make sure who's right or wrong, because there are just people who say Mercedes Moné sucks. So we'll have to see. But that'll wrap up this episode. Appreciate Money joining us. Money, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up this episode?
Oh, nothing really. I mean, I've just been kind of listening along and giving comments where I think is necessary. So I ain't got really nothing to say.
Okay, sounds good. Well, appreciate you guys joining us. Peace.